I'm looking at the offence of obstructing a railway. I'm at Maitland Railway Station. So the 2023 cases I found have been finalised, and I haven't found any new cases. Full of coal. I started looking for examples of obstructing a railway. I found another incident where the railway was obstructed. It happened right here at Maitland train station in July 2022.
The next train to arrive on platform 4 goes to Scone.
But there were no arrests and therefore no court cases. The railway wasn't obstructed for a couple of hours. It was obstructed for 9 days. A quote from Newcastle Herald. Coal supplies are back on track after serious floods at Maitland shut down the Hunter Valley rail network. Floodwater at Maitland Station damages tracks and signal equipment, interrupting at least 220 passenger and supply trips every day for more than 9 days. This means every train, the commuter trains, the very fast XBT, the grain, the cargo, and of course, the coal trains. There were no arrests because there was no climate change protesters, rather it was the actual climate that obstructed the railway. In July 2022, we had a big flood. In Maitland, being on a floodplain next to the Hunter River, we sometimes do floods. Sometimes we do a couple in the same year. For the history buffs, our big flood happened in 1955. Lives were lost, everything was flooded, and from that, the Hunter Flood Mitigation Scheme was created. Meaning levees and floodgates are now used to redirect the floodwater around the town to try and protect the centre of town from being flooded. Maitland train station has floodgates that get closed across the tracks and sandbagged. Here comes the weasel! The tracks disappear under the water. No trains can pass during this time. And there it is. They're the floodgates. So all out there gets flooded. There they are, there. So in July 2022, that's what happened. Not just for a couple of hours, for 9 days. In my opinion, it's the climate rather than the climate change protesters that obstruct the railway the most. The act of protesting in these cases causes disruptions. Usually during the protest, you can find different voices making arguments for and against the protest. For example, some might say the protests don't have that bigger impact on the global supply, but they have an impact on the New South Wales economy. Stand by for some context. In New South Wales, coal is sold to another country. The coal goes to the port by train and is loaded into ships and sails away. The New South Wales government makes royalties from the sale of coal, billions, which it spends on roads and hospitals and probably train stations. The port itself has foreign ownership, which I'm not going to go into, but the port contributes to the local economy by employing people, for example. So when you hear about them impacting on the economy, that's what I understand it to mean. They're impacting on the business done at the port. I mean, there still can be issues fulfilling contracts and getting that coal to the buyer, but largely the impact is on the large business that's at the port. So I can see how deterring people from obstructing a railway is important and therefore the law. However, in my opinion, the greater risk to the railway and therefore the economy is from the actual climate, which isn't being deterred by the law. The law isn't having an effect here. The climate change protesters might disrupt the trains for a couple of hours, but the climate can stop the trains for days and even a week at a time. Also, it costs money because the train lines get damaged during the flood. So how do you keep the climate away from the railway so these coal trains can keep rolling on? So it's not all about coal trains here in Maitland. There is an exciting phenomenon that happens most afternoons. So in New South Wales, we have a very fast train called the XBT. So most afternoons at about 5:30 in Maitland, the XBT going to Brisbane will cross paths with the XBT going to Central. There's its friend. They missed each other. This is coming from Brisbane. The other one's going to Brisbane.